What's going on, everybody? Today is Friday, December 6th. This is the final seven, really the final 8 and 7 recap of Survivor 47. We missed last week. We pretty much got 3 double boots here. We got between these last 2 episodes, and then we got these next 2 weeks upcoming. I guess we could real quick touch on the Kyle boot. I mean, I think he went almost unanimously. There was one hinky vote for Genevieve, of course Andy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I feel like Sam and Genevieve didn't really have a choice, and it set up everybody else pretty well. I didn't have a ton on that one. If you don't,
No, not really. Kyle is like such an archetype, I feel like. I feel like he follows like an archetype, the archetypes to a T, where like he is just who he is, you know? And that is like what happens to that archetype of player where like you just win immunities and you're a nice guy and you win them, and when you don't win them, they vote you out and you're like, "Oh, shucks, like
mm-hmm.
I
Can I
had a
get a
good
hug?
run. I had a good run, didn't I, guys?" And then they're all like, "Yeah, finger guns." Like as he's going up, out the, he's getting his torch snuffed. So, um, I don't know. I do think to give Kyle his flowers maybe a little bit. Like I think the jury would have looked at him pretty favorably if he had made it to the end. So
Mm-hmm.
like you can't really blame anyone for wanting to get him out. I don't think that was unwarranted. That they wanted to vote him out for whatever that means, I guess. Um, but I think he could have won the game. You know, if he got there, I think the jury probably liked him a lot. Um, Especially if he got there with all those immunity wins, he could always make the case that you know, why didn't anyone? I made it here even with that big a target on my back. So give him his flowers a little bit there.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that there was a few people who were kind of on, like Genevieve specifically. I remember, making the case that if he gets there, she's gonna vote for him. Kind of way to position him as a target before her, and I mean it worked. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, 4 immunities, nothing to sneeze at. I think he won what 4 straight, and
Yeah,
then yeah.
they lost two,
So,
right? He went home the second one.
yep, yeah. So he's nice little run there for Kyle, no doubt.
That's
Um,
what I said to you. I think I texted you that was Kyle the Rachel stopper.
yeah, yeah. Now Rachel's on a streak here.
He was the only thing keeping her in check from winning out and winning the game potentially.
Yeah. Um, but yeah. So this week's episode was this had me on the edge of my seat. I
Mm-hmm.
think I might have had, like, not even joking, I might have had an anxiety attack in the middle of this episode. I was shaking. It was like a light degree of shaking, but it was not shivering, and I could not stop. And I was like, "Oh my god!" My heart was pounding the entire time. And can I just say that yes, if an idol is gonna maybe get played, you can kind of get excited like that. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
we haven't had a really big idol play in a long time,
Mm-hmm.
but this kind of shit can happen every week because it's
Yeah.
fucking Survivor. If
Mm-hmm.
they just let it happen.
Yeah, I mean, this was the. I mean, last season that was the whole storyline of last season was everyone was going home with idols and not playing them. So obviously we didn't get any good idol plays then. I have to think back to the last time I really felt the emotion or like the anticipation of an idol play, like I did in this past week's episode. Um, Alyssa did bring up a good point that the last time she felt that excited watching Survivor was when the shot in the dark hit for
Yeah,
Caleb. Was Caleb, right?
yeah,
Yeah. So like I can kind of I would say that's probably the last time I would agree I felt that same type of like, oh shit, like they did something and like the vote needs to change, or you know what I mean, like something's gonna
right.
happen that we didn't 100% expect. So I thought that I'll give her a shout out there because I did agree with her there. But yeah, this is a crazy week. We were going back and forth on like all the things that could possibly happen. I at one point thought it was gonna fall back on Sam anyway, like accidentally. If everyone played
Hmm.
their idols, it would have fallen on Sam. Um, which that would have been a pain in the ass because uh Teeny His fucking stupid face.
Yeah,
At Tribal, like she could claim that, oh yeah, our plan did work when really it didn't work at all.
yeah. So Teeny, I felt like I felt all season like the editors liked her, and honestly, I liked her. I enjoyed her,
Mhm.
um, and you did as well.
Yeah,
And
we've gone full circle.
yeah, it felt like all along that it was this is a positive edit. When Soul went out, I thought she got a big episode worth of like personal things that and the kind of I'm just gonna say punctuation at the at the end of it was that she she basically was like, all right, like I've like after going through all that in my head just now, I think I've found the path forward, right? And I thought that it was an overwhelmingly positive thing that was going to inform her kind of like rising back up from the ashes. And in this episode, now some of the stuff that she's saying, she is just saying, and there's no editing involved, right?
Right.
She's just saying things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like they didn't help her out one bit. If anything,
No,
I felt like they tried to make her look worse in this episode.
I would
I mean,
agree.
she has a great line. Well, I mean, we could get into the whole thing, but um, like when Sam doesn't pick her
Mm-hmm.
for the reward challenge, which is is pretty funny, where like she's banged the drum so hard to keep these guys on the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
and then they do just that. They completely dissociate, and then Sam takes Genevieve and Andy, and then she expects to get taken on the reward. But she tries to say that it's very dumb of Sam to not take her, and it is going to have a quote horrible outcome for their game, and it
Mm-hmm.
is maybe the best move of the entire new era, I would say.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I feel like she got dominated by the edit tonight.
Yeah. Like she just think. Well, we've said this time and time again. Like it's not all about you. Like I don't understand. Like we have gone full circle on her. We did not like her probably for the first. I didn't like her probably for the first episode, and you were like a little bit longer in the pre-merge, but not much longer than me. And I liked her after that. Up until maybe 2 episodes ago, we probably started to transition back to the feeling of like maybe she was who we who we thought she was in the beginning. Um, and she's just gone like full villain mode this
Mm-hmm.
episode, um, like maniacally maneuvering. Um, and I don't understand where she gets this like air of importance about like everything has to do with like what she's doing and everything is like a direct shot at her and directly affects her like you said like why would Sam take her? She's been campaigning the hardest against them out of anyone. Like you're when you're down to this small of a group of people, like it is very difficult for me to see a scenario where only one person can be in the middle.
Right.
And like Teeny thinks she's the only person who could possibly be in the middle when they only need one vote.
Right. Yeah.
Like, why would it just be her? It could be anyone, and it ends up being Andy. And Andy, in my opinion, is a much better candidate than Teeny to flip this.
Yeah, and she goes through the whole thing where also involved in that speech to Jeff, or just answering the question that Jeff asks, I guess, is she's like, yeah, I'm somebody that they should be trying to flip, so they should take me on their award, in hopes of flipping me. It's last fucking episode they tried to flip you, and you were like, I'm not gonna flip, and guys, seriously, stop talking about it. Like I'm not having it. We are 100% voting out Kyle. Like, don't even fucking talk to me about it. And Sam was like, okay, like fuck, I don't know what to do then. And she shut them out to the point where they had nothing to do but just vote for Kyle.
Mm.
And it's, and then this week, the setting has changed, and now she wishes that she got the letters from home or something. I did see, I forget who tweeted it, but somebody tweeted that that production actually Sam was going to make the smart move and pick Teeny, but
Mhm.
production blocked him from taking her because she didn't have a letter from home, which is so,
That's
so
so
mean, but
mean.
that is a funny
That's so
joke.
mean.
So, but yeah, kind of to piggyback off what you were saying, like I don't know what she thinks she's done to have earned the right to talk the way she does. Like
Yeah.
she was never in the know in the pre-merge. There was kind of those three duos, and even when I think there was one vote that she was in on, maybe the first one, when she like a dumbass sided with Rome. It was like the fucking worst. Um, and it kind of blew her entire game up, not getting rid of Rome right off the rip. Um, but yeah, so I mean, the pre-merge, I really feel like she didn't do much. She kind of coasted in the beginning of the post-merge. I don't really have a problem with anything she did. I think she was pretty solid, but she got absolutely tossed on her ass during the soul vote. And then remember she kind of teamed up with Sam and Andy for like an episode
Yeah.
where when she was like totally lost, and that's actually when I was shitting on Sam because I was saying, does he really think he has Teeny? Like this is just her rebound before she actually
Right.
finds what she
Right.
wants. And then she goes to the water well without Sam one time, and all of a sudden he's like a huge douchebag.
Right.
And like she
That spiel, among other spiels, has been like, that is who I thought she was in the beginning. Was like, fuck like the jocks in high school who think they're cool. Like, I'm actually cool because like
I'm
whatever.
different.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's who I thought she was like in the beginning, and then she wasn't for like 2.5 months. Then all of a sudden she is again. So I don't know. And then like the whole thing about her going on about like this is what needed to happen for me to play a strategic game, and then goes on to make the most emotional decisions of the entire game for herself. Like I did not understand it. It was such a bad look for her. I thought like I understand like the points she makes like are often made, but like I think she did a bad job of like I don't first of all I don't agree with a lot of the opinions that she was like I'm just talking about like in life or in society in general, but you know, Survivor and allegory, all that. Um like I feel like those points are pretty often made. Like I've heard people make like points like that before. And I don't agree with them, but like I don't especially think she was making them like well either. Like it like it wasn't she wasn't making them in a way that would convince anyone who thought differently to agree with her in that moment. Um, which is the sign of someone who is bad at arguing. Um,
Yeah, I do think that when you kind of mentioned that she hates, which I I kind of pegged her as somebody who hates the conventionally like, popular people or whatever, and
mm,
I'm not gonna sit here and say like yeah like the nerds deserve to get shoved into lockers and like the cool people are cool for a reason. Like I
no, I don't agree with that
I
either.
don't agree with that either, but at the same time, Sam, I've banged the drum hard against Sam on here.
Hmm.
I do think he's obnoxious and he is a little full of himself for
Hmm.
sure. But in a game where, like, number one, I there was actually a time at the beginning of this where I felt like Sam, outside of Sierra, the most of his screen time was with Kyle and with Teeny. I thought a Sam and Teeny thing was gonna really be big,
Hmm.
and it felt like when they were on the same side, she was more than happy to put up with whatever his personality was. We didn't hear anything negative. And then I still don't really I don't know what the turning point was. Like Sam went on the bottom and that's when he started annoying me because every week he's just like, I guess I'm the big threat. Nobody wants to work. I'm like, you're not a threat. You don't do anything.
Hmm.
Which, if that was her take, I do agree with it. But now, when he's actively trying to flip against her and he's not seeking her out, like, he doesn't need her,
Yeah.
right? So she can't really do anything. She's not, as you said, she's not in the middle. So she has to just sit over there and hope Andy doesn't fuck her over, pretty much. Even though
Yeah.
she doesn't know that that's what she's doing, that's all
Hmm.
she can do, right? And I don't think that she likes that she doesn't have dominion over his game right now.
I think it is a combination of those things is why we get this outburst and why we get this her opinion like coming out on Sam is like it's a combination of she feels Sam is on the bottom like before this week. She feels Sam is on the bottom. She is on the top. I feel like she forms this opinion in her head of like, okay, like he's on the bottom, I can like start dunking on him like a little bit. Like
Right.
not just as in the game, just like as a person because I'm more powerful than he is right now in this game.
Hmm.
And
It's a
then
classic, like you talk shit right after your team wins.
right.
And
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
forget who, I just heard this from somebody. It might have been like Rico Bosco, which is hilarious. And I'm quoting him for something logical, but where it's basically like talk shit before the game starts, or like when it's 0-0, or like whatever.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because then like it doesn't mean anything if you've already won and you're talking shit.
Right.
Yeah. So
All that can
she
happen is this.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So she feels like holier than thou, or even just better, like not even holier, just better. And so I think she in her head formulates, like, starts to dunk on him a little bit. And then, like, he does this. So, like, she's upset about, like, not getting picked
Mhm.
and already feeling more important than she is.
Right.
Like then those emotions just come out as like negative emotions in that moment because she was feeling them, but like then she gets dunked on by Sam pretty much directly.
Yeah.
So like I feel like that's kind of why. And then like to take, I don't know, I just thought it was in poor taste the way she acted. Um, and I don't know. It just left a bad taste in my mouth. And I would like to hear everyone else who was sitting there's real opinions about what they thought in that moment because they didn't really say much, but they were kind of like just like passively agreeing with her while she went on her rant. I'd like to know how they truly felt in that moment, but we
I
probably
think there
never
was
will.
I think there was even a little Rachel confessional slipped in there about how she was just gonna let what was happening happen because it kind of benefits her.
A passive
Um,
bystander.
yeah, that's not what you're supposed to do when there's bullying,
Yeah,
Rachel.
aren't you supposed to be against bullying?
Yeah.
Come on.
Um, but yeah, I think to kind of put a put a bow. I mean, there was you said like three different things that I had a thought for, and then I kept forgetting them because I had
Sorry.
these other ideas. No, you're fine. I forgot my own ideas, but I think the way I would describe Teeny is she's the type of person that because she's mad about your actions, you're wrong.
Hmm.
And I think that was kind of what was fueling all of this was she didn't like what Sam was doing, and how it was kind of affecting her. And but then she took it to, and I mean, by affecting her, he's not even targeting her. Like he's trying to get Rachel, and when they can't get Rachel, they're going after Caroline. Teeny is such an afterthought in this situation, and yet
Well, that's
she's
how. Not sorry to interrupt, but that's how like that's how people feel sometimes. Where it's not it's there's no direct action taken against them, but they're upset because they weren't included. It
right.
had nothing to do with them, but they just weren't included, so they feel upset about it. Anyway.
Yeah, and I think to the other point that you made about she seems to be taking a lot of things very personally.
Mm-hmm.
I did do a quick transcription of her and Genevieve. I mean, a very short one at the beginning of this episode where Teeny. So Genevieve she's pushing hard to still get out Rachel, and actually, I don't want to cut myself off, but I'll pivot to this after. But she's pushing really hard to get rid of Rachel to Teeny, and which is hilarious because Teeny, I didn't even realize this at the time of writing this down, but about 20 minutes later, she's going to be like, why aren't these people trying to flip me? And that's exactly what Genevieve tries to do right here.
Mm-hmm.
But Genevieve's like, yeah, like we should get rid of Rachel. Like I think she's like a really big threat. And Teeny asks, which first of all was not about Teeny at all. So this is a little bit narcissistic just to begin with, where she says, so if Rachel was there with me, you would vote for Rachel. And Genevieve doesn't even say yes. She just says, it wouldn't be a slam dunk for you, is what I'm saying. And Teeny said,
Even though she was thinking yes,
yeah. And then Teeny says,
obviously.
that sounds like a threat. And I feel like she's just looking for reasons to take things personally. It wasn't like Genevieve did not say, if you get rid of me, I'm voting for Rachel. She
No.
said that I, along with many others, will be voting for Rachel if she gets to the end, and therefore we need to get rid of her.
Yeah.
But Teeny takes it as a personal shot against her, which she's been doing a lot since Soul went out.
Yeah.
She pretty much thinks
you're gonna
everyone
vote
is
for
out
her.
to get her now.
That's a vote directly against me,
right.
which
I
is
get
not that is not the case.
Yeah, I get that Genevieve betrayed her, and she has every right to be mad about that and to stonewall her.
Mm-hmm.
But I think her reactions are over the top, even for someone who is completely justified to be upset.
Yeah, I agree. This is completely unrelated to I mean it's related to Teeny, but unrelated to what we're talking about. Alyssa always says she looks like an AI character.
She does look like it's like the default that you haven't
It's like
chosen the clothes
it's like
for and everything
anime-esque.
yet.
I think like her eyes are like very like wide or something. I don't know. Like she has very like anime-esque features, I would say, which isn't a bad thing. I'm not saying like I'm not dunking on her for that at all. Like I would say like anime features are pretty conventionally attractive, actually.
Right,
But
isn't
like
that the point?
yeah, right, exactly. So it reminded me of that. The other point I wanted to make that was not related at all to what we're talking about really was Andy is an objectively funny person to take on this reward.
Yes.
Like he was like, me? Really?
Yeah, and the funny part was Sam was like, "This is the guy that I like." This or not? I don't think he says
The
guy
person.
because it would give it away. But he's like, "This is the number one person. Like, it's so obvious to me that I need to take this person." And then between so obvious to Andy saying, "I'm the last person that I thought he would take." It's so funny.
Yeah, because like I don't even know who I thought he would have been talking about in that moment. Probably Sue would have been my guess.
I thought it was gonna be Genevieve, just for like, you know what, we're both fucked. I'm gonna take Genevieve on this reward.
I feel like the mom always gets taken on those on the letters.
Sue is not mom like. She doesn't have an ounce of Julie in her. I don't.
She's
think.
not old enough to be a mom.
That's true.
She does not have an ounce of Julie in her. But yeah, I thought that was really funny. That like he is a really funny person to go on. Like I don't know why I think that's funny of him to go for this letters from home thing, but like obviously he would not be upset with me saying that because he thought the same thing and said it on Survivor. So
Yeah, and I also thought there was a very funny thing with Andy when they each get the confessional where they're kind of reading off the letters and stuff. I think Genevieve and Sam, they're both like, Genevieve's like crying and Sam's like tearing up a little bit, or like you could tell he's a little emotional during his. And Andy, he's like talking about how his mom's such a big Survivor fan, and I think he says something along the lines of like, she's more proud than she's ever been, and like this is really good to hear. And like there's not an ounce of emotion on his face, and I just thought that was a hilarious reaction.
He's
He's
like
the fucking
he's
best.
like, she's never told me she's proud of me. I wonder why that is.
She was never proud
He's not
until
upset
I got
about it
on
that she's never
Survivor.
said it. He's just like, she's never said that. It's never occurred to me until right now.
But yeah, speaking of Andy, I mean, I did have a point for the Genevieve Teeny thing, but I'm gonna circle back to it because it's still gonna be relevant later. But
All right.
this the 3-2 here. So this is a move that I'm not gonna be like, oh, like I'm smarter or whatever. Like this is a move that I've thought of before because as I've mentioned on here before, I lay awake at night thinking about if I was a Survivor player in all these different situations, what would I do? And I think this or like the 3-2-1, like I'm obsessed with winning by pluralities. I think that's like the craziest thing that you can pull off, like idleless. And so I also have another, maybe I'll unveil this at the end, but I have a great Survivor strategy that I think
All right.
could work. But you have to really rely on one other person to a level that I don't know if you ever could. And you also have to kind of fuck them over and still have them be with you, which I also, it takes
Does not work.
a very specific kind of person. But yeah, the 3-2-2, it's perfect. I mean, it's so, Sam and Genevieve, they are two, and the idol splitting logic, first of all, I don't get the people who are against this. Even if you don't think one of them has an idol, there's no reason not to do this as long as you can all trust each other. So I like the pushback. I get the pushback, right? But I honestly think if you the more people you have, the less you can trust a split vote, because then there's more people that could possibly flip on you, right? When it's such a small number, it's only 5. If you truly think that Sam and Genevieve are the two people you got to get out and everyone's on a level playing field at 5, then I think by all means, like especially for people like I think Teeny and Caroline were the two that were against doing this, and or maybe it was Teeny and Rachel, but I really don't get that, and I think the very interesting thing that happened here was the 4 women that were back at camp. They have their 5-person alliance with Andy. They essentially get rid of him in this situation. They just say, we're the final 4. They basically say, and Andy's no longer in it. And then kind of right after that, he has this epiphany of, I gotta flip this game. And when you're saying he's the funniest person to bring, I also think he's the most flippable person because
I agree with that.
He has not been able to sit still this entire post merge, and he's been doing it very stealthy. This was definitely the most overt thing that he's done. But yeah, I mean, what it comes down to is you got to make it a 3-2 split, and you got to make sure you're on the 3 side. And despite this being a move that hasn't really happened, I can't really remember the last. I mean, you got to go back pretty far for a split that somebody flips on it. Or a split that they actually go through with the split and someone flips on it, and sometimes it gets snuffed out beforehand. But yeah, I think that despite it being a high difficulty maneuver, I actually don't think. I think as long as you trust Andy, it's not hard to pull off at all. You pretty much gotta just convince them of the idol, and that's where I think Teeny comes in, is because Genevieve has been banging her head against the wall for fucking weeks. Every week we get a Teeny and Genevieve conversation where Teeny basically is like, no, I'm done with you, Genevieve. I'm not fucking working with you anymore. And she keeps trying. And that's the only way that her showing Teeny the idol isn't sketchy, right? Because if they truly dissociate, and then she's like, hey, Teeny, I got the idol. Like, get the votes on me, right? She's built this idea up for Teeny that Genevieve still thinks that she has to work with you. And so when she's with Sam on the trail and Teeny's like, she's like, yeah, all the votes are kind of on you, Genevieve. And she's like, good, keep it that way. As in like, hey, Teeny, like, we trust you. Like, help us pull off this plan. Like, we're going to idle somebody out and like, you could be in on it. Like, help us out, And because we trust you. And Teeny is so fucking gullible. Like, she has hated on these people. There's no fucking reason for them to side with her at all. And she's like, oh, like, I know something someone else doesn't know, and I'm gonna, like... So I think they were hoping that she would maybe spread that. She doesn't really. But I thought that was just... There was one more, like, dunk on Teeny moment of just... She completely flips when one small thing changes. Like, as soon as she thinks that Genevieve and Sam are maybe good for her, then she's done being a scumbag to them. Now it's like, oh, these are my friends again.
Yeah, I just thought that... I thought every step of this plan was executed perfectly by Andy. I, like, almost to the degree of, like... is he, like... Does he have, like, the producers in his ear or something? Like, the way, like you said, I understand that it's produced after the fact, so they cut shit together, and he may have, like, realized that, he's on the bottom of that 5, like, prior to when they actually said it. Or, like, I don't know what the actual timeline was. They move shit around all the time. He could have said that 2 days before. But, like, to have the wherewithal to, like, realize, like, any of that, to be honest, like... To realize that you're on the bottom of a 5, and to realize that, okay, we're all planning on dunking on Sam or Genevieve, but I'm probably going to be next, or the next one after that, and to be like, okay, my plan is since they are my alliance, to get them to split the vote, and then I'll be the one who flips, like premeditated to flip.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's like crazy wherewithal, like an understanding of your position, and understanding of what's gonna happen. Like, I feel like Andy doesn't even do himself justice, because like in his confessionals, like, which are, for the most part, like unedited, like just their thoughts, or
Hmm.
unfiltered, I should say. Like, you don't have to hold anything back in confessionals. Like, I don't even think he does himself justice for this plan that he's making. Like, I feel personally like the casual Survivor fan does not give Andy the credit he deserves
No,
for like these moves.
yeah, some of I've got a couple people that I talked to about Survivor throughout the week, and a lot of them are. I'm just now getting a couple people to come around on Andy like the week before this, right?
Hmm.
Where I feel like he's done such a good job of articulating his game to us in confessional. That's why until this move happened, so the more I think about it, like yeah, this was a big move, and this is huge for him to where I think if he gets to the end, he wins now.
Hmm.
But I do still think before that he was going. I think he was ready to win the game even without making this move because I think that is Mart sleeping back there.
He is back there. He keeps itching himself and walking all
Oh,
around. Sits down.
I thought I maybe heard a snore or something. So I was,
I think he's just always making noise.
but what was I talking about? Andy.
Hmm.
Um, what was I
You
talking
were
about?
bringing
Andy?
people around on him just recently.
Yeah. So he's. I think he does such a good job of explaining his game in confessional, and everyone was so ready to take him to the end that I actually think he was going to get there, and then we've already seen his like persuasive skills of like winning over the audience in confessional, right?
Hmm.
So I actually think he would have had a really good chance of winning.
Hmm.
Um, if he didn't do anything, but now he makes this move, it makes it so that he definitely wins if he gets there.
Right.
But now I'm not so sure that he gets there.
Yeah.
And maybe this is a good time to jump off for predictions. Or
Hmm.
I do want to say one last thing first.
Sure.
Was this was a great job by the editors. They definitely had a lot to work with in this episode.
Hmm.
Um, but I thought the one uh little I mean maybe it was a little overt, but the Sue and Caroline thing at the beginning, where it's basically Caroline imagines herself imagining Sue as her daughter,
Hmm.
and Sue's saying how she's proud of Caroline, and there's all this, and before this episode, I've been saying for a few weeks now I thought Caroline was the winner,
Hmm.
and I thought this was the last kind of like, hey, right before the home stretch here, don't forget these two are never breaking up. That's all I thought it was, and this was actually the perfect informing of who was going to go home when
Right.
they're targeting Rachel and Rachel wins immunity, and the obvious thing is you got to break up Caroline and Sue, and they're reminding the audience like, hey, remember how close these two are, and then they mention Caroline as a threat for sure. The players do at least,
Hmm.
but yeah, I just thought that was a nice little thing to slip in at the beginning. I'm always looking for shit like that. Um, I try to I take the most notes actually in that first opening segment
Hmm.
because I'm like, all right, this is how they're trying to set up the episode, and then I like to go back and be like, I thought that. There's so many times that I thought one thing, and
Hmm.
then it's the exact opposite. Like they're setting you up in an ironic kind of way,
Right.
and I enjoyed that setup this week for sure.
Yeah, I thought there was one confessional that I brought up to you while we were watching the episode of Caroline, like imagining herself as the winner. Like she's like, I can picture myself as the winner of Survivor. I'm like,
Yeah.
she's going home this week. But we thought for a long time, like, okay, this is the battle between Genevieve and Caroline. One of them's the final boss, and one of them's the winner. And me and you had argued, for a few weeks. Like, I thought it was Genevieve, you thought it was Caroline. We go back and forth. Why do we make the case for each one? When in reality, it's Andy takes out Caroline, and Genevieve's on the bottom. What if
Right.
Andy just takes out Genevieve now? That'd be like he takes them both out.
Yeah. I did think that. So yeah, a couple things. I did see someone online say if Rachel doesn't win immunity, Caroline probably wins the entire game because I think Rachel goes home here, and then I think Andy kind of becomes the biggest threat. And even if they try to break up Sue and Caroline in the next episode, I don't think Teeny's willing to do that. If things don't go so off the rails here. But yeah, I felt like through what we saw of her in Confessional, which I would say is not enough, I think she was kind of under-edited. She really did seem like the best and like one of the most cerebral players that there is. I think she played the best all-around game to that point of like she had the highs of Genevieve and really none of the lows, and she wasn't perceived all that threatening quite yet. But clearly people were already getting ready to give her the respect.
Right.
So, yeah, well, I guess we'll talk more about Rachel, but I did see someone on one of those threads. Oh yeah, it was actually a comment to that exact exact tweet was that they were like, yeah, if Rachel doesn't win immunity, Caroline wins the game, implying that Rachel would have been the one to go home. Somebody was like, Rachel clocked it, I fear. And I was like, I don't think she did at all. I don't think there's any shot that idol is coming out.
No.
If she doesn't have immunity.
Yeah, I don't think so either. She clocked it, so she decided to win immunity.
You're right. Yeah.
Like she wasn't trying anyway.
Yeah,
I disagree with that.
But yeah, we can get a prediction. So I actually think the 2-part finale is maybe going to work out even better for us because we can still do our finale. So they're billing it as a 2-part finale.
Right, not just a 2-hour-long episode and a 2-hour-long finale.
Right. So yeah, we are able to do our like pre-finale predictions like we always do. But then I'm always trying to figure out a way to talk about who the jurors are actually going to vote for.
Yeah.
There's never a good way to do it. I think next week will be perfect because
there
will only be 4 people left, and I don't think there will be a ton of likely permutations left at that point. So you could probably dive a little bit deeper into that. So, yeah, I know you were cooking something over there. We were talking about this offline before.
So I have something cooked.
Yes. Should I start with just, the one that you already know that is kind of my idea for how it runs
go
down?
for it.
Yeah, so well, okay, so I saw, it's not a spoiler, but someone was just like really sharp looking at one of the clips, and they noticed that somebody had some form of safety for this upcoming week. And so I don't want to spoil people to that, so I'm not going to say who I think is going to win immunity.
Okay.
In this next episode, because I know who wins immunity. I'm not going to pick wrong just to throw people off. So I'm just not going to say who I think will win immunity. I thought the preview for next time was very interesting. It looked like Teeny's maybe ready to jump ship on Rachel. It looks like she's telling people that Rachel has the vote block. I thought after this, they have the 5-person, the majority underdogs alliance, because that's what an underdog is. They've now lost a person and had a defector, so now there's only 3 left. So really, Rachel, Sue, and Teeny kind of need each other at this point. And I felt like the most obvious thing that could happen next would be, now that Andy is the biggest threat out there, that Rachel blocks his vote and Andy is voted out 3-2, which it's crazy to say that it's just the most likely thing to happen would be him to go home right after he pulled off such a great move. But I do really believe that I think Andy is going next. And I said something like months ago about how I saw on Reddit that producers don't really like this season. And first of all, the season is shaking out very well. I think it's very entertaining. It's been a great cast. It's been pretty action-packed so far, I would say. And I don't really see a reason for them not to like it. And I think maybe why they don't like it is because they love Andy so much and he does not win. Yeah. So I feel confident picking that he's going to be voted out. And he was really before this week. He was kind of the toughest one to place. So, yeah, I think he's going. I think he's going at 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rachel is going to have that idol at 5. So, if Teeny does turn on her, I think Rachel's bringing that idol out this week. In which case, 5 gets a lot more interesting. But I would bet that I would bet that Rachel does not need to play it at 6. So, for saying Rachel's safe at 5, I feel like she's actually a pretty appetizing person to target. So, I think the idol will definitely be negating some votes. I don't know if it'll negate a majority of votes, but I do think the final 5 is probably where Genevieve gets voted out.
Mm-hmm.
So then I have a final 4 of Teeny, Sam, Sue, and Rachel. And Teeny really feels like a fire loser to me. I think most of her journey has been an emotional one and one of kind of finding yourself, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that always kind of gets intertwined with the fire loser of the person who is so close to the ultimate goal, but ultimately does not get the chance to plead their case. And for that person, Jeff always does, the couple questions afterwards where he's really trying to find a silver lining for that person. And they often lean into what their journey was. And I can already picture Teeny giving, her spiel there about what her journey was. So I don't know who I think would beat her. I think I would probably bet it's either Rachel or Sam. But also Sue seems more than capable of winning the fire. I just don't know why you would ever put Sue into the challenge.
Right.
Is really my point. So, yeah, then I think it comes down to Rachel, Sam, and Sue. Sue is a person that I think for a while now I've said that she could be a 0-vote finalist or at least a losing finalist.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought it was going to be sitting next to Caroline,
Mm-hmm.
but I still think she can get there.
I think
Sam,
I think anyone wants to bring her.
Yeah. And so I think Sam, I'm not sure if I've said it on here or not. I think I have, but I really like the idea of Sam as a losing finalist, where this is a person who has definitely made their fair share of moves and had their fair share of control, but ultimately it's not a very complete game.
Mm-hmm.
And he could still argue, he could still grab a couple votes. It'll still probably be a respectable performance, but I mean, outside of Sierra, I think Sierra's would be a guaranteed vote for him, and maybe Genevieve. But I think Rachel's really been on Genevieve's radar for so long that in a game recognized game kind of deal, I think she'd vote for her.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think Rachel would win in a landslide, which is crazy to me, because I want to talk about Rachel's game as a whole, but I'll have you go first here.
Okay. Yeah, this is my regular scenario. I originally had something pretty much identical to what you had as the final pick, so I'm going to switch a couple things up that I still think are pretty plausible to happen. I'm going to keep my 6th place the same. I'm also not going to reveal who we believe to have safety here. I think Andy is going to, in the same way that you said, with the vote block, with him being a target, goes home. So obviously that person is not Andy. we're revealing. But after that final 5, Rachel has an idol to play. So she plays her idol, right? I think Genevieve wins immunity at 5.
And then Sammy.
And Sam gets idled out.
Okay.
By Rachel. Which leaves us with Rachel, Teeny, Sue, and Genevieve going into fire.
Mm-hmm.
I think then Sue wins immunity and brings Teeny.
Okay. That would be a showdown. Rachel versus Genevieve.
And Rachel beats Genevieve in fire.
Yeah.
So Genevieve goes home 4. Sue is my 3rd place. Teeny would then be my runner-up. And Rachel would win in a landslide again, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Would be my slight tweak to what you have.
Yeah. Do you think Teeny gets a vote? Or is it a co-runners up there? she probably finds
No,
one somewhere.
I don't know who votes for her. Could you?
Yeah.
Who would it be?
I can't really I think Soul is maybe the most likely, but I think he's
I think
a
he's
pretty
game
cerebral
recognized
guy.
game.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so too.
So
I'd have a tough
that would be
time.
my one difference. I think it just does come down to who wins immunity at 5. What happens there? That's always what it comes down to. But that would be my slight tweak on what we decided.
Yeah. So yeah, I did want to talk about Rachel for a bit here because I feel like in the fan community, I think Andy has been viewed as a guy who can't really win, and I think there's a lot of Andy truthers this week that are like, all right, where's everybody been? That now sees Andy as a threat, like he's been lurking the whole time, right? And I think a lot of those same people who have said Andy can't win have pegged Rachel as a potential winner for a while. I think that it's something that we've briefly mentioned on here. That she maybe has some upside, but we always kind of thought it was Caroline or Genevieve. Now it's looking almost like if Rachel doesn't win, she's really messed it up. And I'm kind of wondering why. Like, the reason why I've said Rachel can win is because it seems that the perception of the players on the island is that Rachel is a threat to win. And I don't know if I think it's mostly because she's likable and a decent strategic ally, right? I know Caroline was talking about in Exit Press that Rachel was pretty much her strategic number one by the end, which is a slap in the face of Miss Sue Smee, I must say. Her actual number one.
Smee.
Yeah. But just kind of looking at Rachel's game, I mean, so if we go to everything that she's been involved with, pretty much, John going at the first tribal council, I don't think it's really a positive for anybody other than just like voting with the numbers. Like, that is what it is, whatever. Their second tribal council, she gets the absolute wool pulled over her eyes. And Annika ends up going home. She doesn't vote correctly either. So you could say, and I mean, I know pre-merge doesn't matter as much, but she had a just about as bad of a pre-merge as you could have for somebody that only goes to 2 tribal councils and the first vote is a slam fucking dunk. So then there's Rome going home, whatever. She was one of many people who wanted him gone. And I really, you can't even really be argued that she was a driver on that vote. I think she's pretty silent that week. Then I think where it gets really damning is episode 7, the final 12, when they split into 2 groups and she was with all the Bakas. Is that with the Blues? Whatever. She was with all the Blues. And Tuku, that's what it is. She's with all the Blues, and Soul just gets the most random advantage that he has to gift to someone, and he chooses to gift it to her.
Which is the right move for Saul.
That is the right move for him, but she's now safe in a situation where she was definitely going home. So this is one where she was completely out of the vote, and her entire game got turned upside down. Now, after just voting Rome out, she's all the way back to should have been voted out again at the Tiana vote. And then Sierra, it's still a little fuzzy if she knew Sierra was going home or not. Regardless, I mean, she plays the shot in the dark, which I've said I like the move. I don't think it's a very valuable thing. But
she plays it right because she has the wrong read in that she could be going home, right?
Right, because there were people online that were like, "Oh, she did it so that she doesn't have to vote out one of them."
Right.
And she pretty much said afterwards that was not the case. That she just was playing the shot in the dark.
Exactly. So this vote is wrong read, also waste of a shot in the dark.
Right. Then at the Soul vote, she votes for Soul, which this is maybe her worst round, because at least when Tiana went home and she got saved by Soul, she kind of got screwed into that situation.
Right.
The Soul vote, he extends an olive branch to her. This is a guy who doesn't have a ton of alliances. She is somebody who doesn't have a ton of alliances, and she really needs to build some kind of coalition of underdogs, right? We've said a lot of winners have been really good at that. Is right around this point in the game, final 8 or so. Who are the 2 or 3 stragglers that have nobody? Let me make them mine, and then I just really only need a couple other people, and then we're cruising. Sol should have been somebody like that for her, and not only does she not protect him, but she's actively for the plan to get rid of him, and she accidentally saves him by making another poor decision to tell Sam, who Sam is then the one who blows it up. So her plan does not work,
which was wrong in the first place.
And well, sorry, her plan ends up working because everything gets completely blown apart and then it comes back together on Sol. But she has the wrong plan and then she blows it up by accident and then thinks she made a mistake by doing that.
Right.
And then, Gabe going, did she really have anything to do with that? I don't think so. Kyle going, did she really have anything to do with that? I don't think so. And now this week, this is the third time that she's been completely shocked by a vote. The fourth round of voting where she's been really poor at the game. And so I've said 4 actively bad rounds in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rounds of voting that she has been a part of.
Right. And no active good decisions.
Right. I just don't.
I don't get it either.
I don't know I don't see what she's doing right.
Yeah, we've been Rachel haters the entire game, pretty much, until, I'm still a Rachel hater, but, I can read the tea leaves a little bit, and that she's probably going to win. Maybe that's why production didn't think it was a good season, was because they don't think she deserved to win, or they don't think she was good. I don't know. Yeah. It's certainly edited that way. All those points you made were, I'm sure, points that we've made, as they happen throughout the season. And I'm glad you brought them up, because I was just going to say, basically, without all that evidence, she hasn't made any good decisions the entire game. I feel like every week I get on here and I talk about how, oh, this happened, but it had nothing to do with Rachel, even though Rachel made the worst decision for her game and had nothing to do with the vote. I feel like I say that every week because that's what happens every week. She either actively fucks up her own game and survives, or doesn't know what's happening.
Right. And I think, so the fact that she's been targeted, so it's kind of Genevieve's doing, where Genevieve is really the main one who's thought Rachel is a threat, and then Rachel's kind of targeted Genevieve, and I don't know if she has blinders because of that, but there is something to be said, the jury always seems to value pretty much the events of the finale, but really it's just the late game. If you have a big late game, Chris Underwood got voted out of the fucking game, but he had a perfect 3 rounds of voting or 2 rounds of voting in fire, and that's enough for some people. And so Rachel, if you could say that she's being targeted hard, she then wins 2 immunities against a guy who before that had not lost a challenge, or I guess he lost a team challenge at one point, but he has not lost an individual immunity. If she's able to beat him twice, then say at the final 6, if she was the one to win immunity, or even if she doesn't, if she successfully uses this vote block to now get out Andy, who the jury is really leaning into at this point,
right?
Then she uses the idol at 5. Especially if she's getting votes at 5, that's a huge thing.
Right.
If she makes fire, there's a lot of ways that she could still greatly improve her resume.
Right. We're talking about right now in the game right now.
Yeah. I personally, I always say that the person I would vote for to win is the person who imposes their will the most on the game. And right now that's Andy by a very, very wide margin. And I think after that, yeah, Rachel, I don't think she's far behind Genevieve. I'd probably say Genevieve's second best.
I would agree.
I don't think she's necessarily super far behind Genevieve,
I would
but
agree.
it's just the amount of mistakes. Like Genevieve was playing the Andy game until the soul boot. And so
Right.
now this is 3 weeks in a row where she's been playing from the bottom.
Hmm.
And if she's able to get to the end, then it's okay. This person, they had a lot of control at one point. They got knocked off their pedestal, and they still were able to game themselves to the end. I do think that's impressive. But yeah, I think if she sits there with Sam at the end, I've been against Sam all along, but I don't know what separates her from Sam, other than that she knew about more votes, I guess, or she voted correctly more.
Yeah, I think they're very similar. Not in their like play styles, but like in their resume. I would say they're not much different. Um,
Hmm.
but I mean, I have her sitting there against Teeny and Sue. I'd vote for her
Right.
in that scenario.
Yeah. There's no way. I think Sue is dead as a doornail,
Hmm.
and Teeny is now drawing dead after
Yeah.
this past week.
Teeny would never get my vote. I don't think. Pretty much, she would have to like if she probably would have to sit against two Sues to get my vote. But I think yeah, like I think if Rachel ends up sitting there against Teeny and Sue, it will be by her own doing. Like she has to get to the end now. She does have to do some stuff. So like that maybe we will change our opinion after next week's episode. But
Yeah, I do.
I don't
I
know.
agree with the point that you made. Is you know, for all the things that could happen, and yeah, if Rachel gets to the end, she's gonna have to do a lot of things. As of this particular second, I'm not really impressed with the winning game. I think she's she's had a weird draw
Mm-hmm.
where she's been on the bottom a lot, and while being on the bottom, she's also perceived as a threat, and so people still target her.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I do get that she's had to scrape by, and there's definitely some merit to that kind of game. Like I
I
definitely
think
think that's more impressive than somebody like Teeny that
yeah.
has nobody's really actively been against her too much, other than uh, being left out of the original Soul plan, which
Mm-hmm.
she still votes him out, and it was kind of her fault that he even went home to begin with. So
Yeah, I think we're more making this point not being anti Rachel, more being it doesn't make sense that people are campaigning for her that she should win the game at this point online.
right,
That doesn't make sense to me.
yeah, you could say that she's a dark horse.
Yeah.
If that's her take, I 100% agree with you
Yeah.
because, like you said, kind of reading the tea leaves, it does kind of seem like she's got a good shot at winning here.
If the
But
season ended today, she's not my winner pick.
no, she's not. Andy's the winner.
Yeah.
All right.
Feel my chaos.
Yeah. We got last order of business here
Chung chung.
is the Dun Chains. So, Fantasy Survivor, just as it was getting close, it's now no longer close. I've lost two people back to back weeks. Um, at one point, we said that all the winner equity was on my team, and all of a sudden, I've got Andy and Genevieve, and that's all. And they look like they're probably the next two to go. So,
Funny how that changes.
right. Yeah. So I texted you since we missed last week. I wasn't going to be able to give out a Dun Chain,
Mm-hmm.
but before the vote, I texted you that Sam was going to be my Dun Chain. So
Yes.
that happened. I'm sticking to it. So with that, we both had Sam and Sue Dun Chained, and then all that's left is I have Andy as well. So with Caroline going, I have another one to give.
You got a
My
couple to pick from here.
right, my choices here are Genevieve, Rachel, and Teeny. And for me, what it really comes down to is, um, do I think Genevieve gets voted out? So this is a little unprecedented because we usually stop the Dun Chains at the final six.
Right.
So two people are going to go home next week. Are we giving two Dun Chains next week?
No, I would say we should still stop at the final six. I would say this should probably be the last one.
Okay. I do agree with that. Because that would change it significantly. Because if if I lost both people next week, I'd just be out
Yeah.
of people.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, And that was the original issue with the Dun Chain, was when we used to both pick every week, and it's like we're picking 17 or like 13 people or whatever.
Right, yeah.
It's just too many. So yeah, I think the easy choice is Teeny, because I think even if she gets to the end, I really don't see a way that she can win. Genevieve, I do think it's unlikely that she gets there, but if by some chance she gets there, I do think she's gonna win. So, and Rachel, I've said a bunch of times over the course of this that I do think she's the winner. So I am going to Dun Chain Teeny.
Nice. That's the spirit of the Dun Chain. Gotta pick the person who's not gonna win.
Right? That's exactly it. Yeah. So, yeah. So next week we'll recap. There's a lot of people saying that they think the final 5 Tribal Council is going to be a cliffhanger, which I had that thought independently as well, because the challenge used to do that all the fucking time. Where
Big Brother does that too.
Yeah, and but at least Big Brother, it's part of the schedule.
It is a scheduled cliffhanger. That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
The challenge, they'll just fucking randomly at one point they'll just, hey, this elimination right as it starts at the end of the fucking episode. And you're like, what the fuck? And then for a month, all of a sudden, eliminations are the very first thing to happen, and then there's no elimination at the end. I'm like, what are we doing here? So, yeah. Next week we'll have the recap of the final 6 and probably the final 5. And then it'll be leading into the finale on the 18th. I think December 18th is the final finale. Which I wonder if they're gonna, because it's been 3 hours, and there's like a half an hour reunion that's the makes up the very end of that. I wonder if it's gonna be like a full. That's kind of why I think the final 5 might be in the second one, because you're gonna get the whole final 6 boot. It's essentially you get a full hour-and-a-half episode, and then you get everything leading up to that decision at 5, and then that's your full 2 hours, and then you start off with just a vote. Takes about 10 minutes, right? You just get into it and then you vote, and then final 4 challenge. Fire making is always like, it's always just a bunch of confessionals that nobody actually really fucking cares about. And then the fire challenge, and it's still keeping not that much time for the reunion. I think if it was just the final 4 on, we'd have to have like a 45-minute reunion at the end.
Yeah, I think it is because we went to hour-and-a-half episodes. I think they wanted to transition to like maybe a little bit of a different finale schedule.
Yeah.
Just the way it shakes out, which is fine. Yeah. I'd rather have 2 2-hour episodes than 1 3-hour episode.
I agree. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it. Unless you got anything else.
No.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you all next time.